Hello, my wonderful friends, and welcome back to the Happy Aura channel. I am Jenny, and I am sending you so much love and light today. I want you to take a moment to settle in. Make yourself comfortable. Grab a warm drink if you can, and let's take a deep breath together. Today, we are going to talk about something that feels completely counterintuitive. We are going to talk about the speed of love. We are going to explore why going slowly, even when every fiber of your being wants to sprint, might just be the secret to a lasting, healthy relationship. It sounds, on the surface, like the most withholding and mean-minded of strategies to go very slowly when we might, at some deep, instinctive level, want to go very fast indeed. When we meet someone new, someone who sparks that electric feeling in our chest, our impulse is to dive in. We want to consume them, and we want to be consumed by them. But imagine a different approach. Imagine saying, perhaps we might meet again in a couple of weeks, rather than asking, are you free tomorrow? Imagine letting at least 4 meetings pass before we hold out a hand to touch theirs. Imagine assuming that we cannot, for a long while, really know who has come into our lives. Imagine deciding not to introduce them to our friends immediately, deciding not to get into a regular rhythm over text messages, and deciding not to mention the word love until it is almost a different season. To the modern eye, such self-possession might sound denying. It might sound sad. It might be interpreted as a lack of interest or a sign of coldness. We often judge such miserliness with affection as a character flaw. Modernity, after all, was supposed to have liberated us from decorum. We were supposed to be the generation that could let go of the rigid rigmaroles of propriety. We were told to follow the untroubled callings of our hearts, to seize the day, to act on our passions without delay. But here is the truth we need to sit with. Slowness does not necessarily need to have anything to do with prudishness or outdated social mores. It is not about playing games. It can be, in fact, the safest place where we land once we have built up a more profound, more compassionate understanding of the psychology of love. Whatever we may tell ourselves in the heat of the moment, love is far from being simply all we humans want. It is complex. However heady and beautiful it might appear from a distance, love is something that may, in actuality, terrify us as much as it delights us. It is something we are as much tempted to flee from as we are to embrace. When you really think about it, caution is therefore entirely logical. To stand helpless and vulnerable before another human being is a massive act. To hope that they will see us as we truly are, flaws, shadows, history, and all, and still care for us, opens us up to a genuine and uncommon risk of devastation. If heartbreak can kill us, and we know that emotionally it feels like it more or less can, no wonder if we should, at least in part, begin with modest steps. We are walking onto a tightrope. It makes sense to check the tension of the wire before we run across it. for many of us, this general terror is compounded by our history. To the general terror of vulnerability, some of us have backgrounds that add another, particularly intense layer of fear. We have to look at our childhoods to understand our speed. We may have grown up in disturbed environments where the first rule of love was that it was scarce, dangerous, or unpredictably distributed. In our youngest years, the formative years that built our emotional nervous system, we may have had to acclimatize ourselves to a very uneven supply of affection. Perhaps our mother was unavailable, lost in her own depression or grief. Perhaps our father was violent or simply absent. There might have been a lot of sarcasm in the house and not much patience for our sorrows or our opinions. We learned that feelings were a burden to others, and therefore, the only way to survive, the only way to keep our small hearts intact, would have been to withdraw. We learned to play alone in our rooms. We learned to soothe ourselves. We made our peace with a restricted emotional diet. We learned to survive on crumbs. So, consider what happens when someone arrives in our adulthood promising us a banquet. We are used to starvation, and suddenly, here is a person laying out dish after dish of generosity and care. When someone promises us unlimited kindness, constant attention, and unwavering tenderness, our first response may not be joy. It may be nausea. It may not be delight, but panic. Our systems are not built for this abundance. We may be unable to absorb or metabolize any of the rich nutrients before us. It feels foreign. It feels suspicious. It feels like a trick. And without quite knowing why, in order to maintain our poise and our sense of safety, we may have no option but to turn on our kind hosts. We might blame them for being weak or clingy or odd. We might push them away or simply run away ourselves. We might wish to tell them, if we had the language for it, please be so kind as not to be too kind. Please be generous enough not to overwhelm me. Please, I beg of you, let me find my own way to reciprocation. We need them to slow down so we can catch our breath. We need them to feed us slowly so we do not get sick. Now, let's look at the other side of the ledger. This is equally important. We must speak to the so-called generous ones, the banquet givers, the people who like to move fast. If you are the person who falls in love in a week, who wants to text every hour, who plans the future on the third date, you should also be brave enough to question your behavior. It may look, on the surface, as if we are being purely and simply romantic. We tell ourselves we are just passionate. We book a trip to Paris on the second date. We invent intimate nicknames after a week. We introduce them to our parents after a month. But we may turn out to be, beneath our bold and sweeping gestures, something rather more complicated and sad. We may be untenably and unhelpfully anxious. We are not moving fast because we are so full of love. We are moving fast because we are full of fear. We lose our minds if we have not heard from them in 2 hours. We stare at the phone, watching the minutes tick by, convinced that the silence means the end. We cannot bear not to know their intentions before the arrival of dessert. We need guarantees. We need contracts of the heart, signed and sealed immediately. We are giving a lot, not so much because we want to, as because we have no confidence in ourselves as people with a solid claim to love. We do not believe we are lovable just for existing. We believe we must earn love through grand gestures and constant presence. We are running to stay one step ahead of self-disgust. We are running to outpace the voice in our head that says we are not enough. We are moving at lightning speed because our childhoods have taught us the opposite lesson of the avoidant person. Our childhoods taught us that love may disappear at any time. We learned that connection is fragile, that nothing is solid, that we aren't worthy of consistent care. We learned that the best way, the only way, to prevent loss is to make outsized efforts. We lose ourselves in displays of devotion. We try to make ourselves indispensable. We try to prompt our beloved to say yes to a forever commitment before either of us really knows who the other might actually be. We're trying to lock down safety before we have even established friendship. This rush, this frantic need to merge, is not intimacy. It is a defense mechanism. It is a way of saying, I will overwhelm you with love so you never have the chance to see my flaws and leave me. So where does that leave us? If rushing is anxiety and withdrawing is fear, what is the goal? Mature love, by contrast, sits boringly but beautifully in a middle zone. It exists between the frightened rush on the one hand and the equally frightened withholding on the other. It is a quiet place. Its hallmarks are confidence, calm, and self-possession. Its essence, above all else, is patience. The healthy lover, the person we are all striving to become, has the wherewithal to think a very specific set of thoughts. They can look at a new person and think, I like them, but I do not yet know them. They recognize that knowing someone takes time, seasons, and situations. They think, I want them to stay around, but I could bear to live without them. This is crucial. It means their survival does not depend on this other person. They think, I am attracted to them, but I have got no need to act on my desires immediately. There will be time. There is no fire. There is no emergency. It sounds clever, doesn't it? It sounds like a strategy you could learn in a book. But it is in truth usually something far more automatic and instinctive for a certain lucky group of people. This capacity for slowness is the legacy of a reliable, loving upbringing. It is the gift given to those who were held when they cried, who were told they were good, who saw healthy love modeled at the breakfast table. For those of us who have not benefited from such a gift, and let's be honest, that is a vast number of us, perhaps even the majority, there is no greater challenge. But there is also no greater opportunity. we can, nevertheless, make a conscious effort to repair ourselves. We can choose to slow down our trepidations and our extravagances. We can learn to self-regulate. When we feel the urge to run away because the love feels too big, we can tell ourselves, "This is just the fear of the feast. I can take one bite at a time." When we feel the urge to rush forward and demand a promise of forever because we haven't heard from them since the morning, we can tell ourselves, "I am safe. My worth is not tied to this text message. I can wait." Our attitudes to love can gradually become imbued with ease, serenity, and self-compassion. We can replace the frantic energy of the child with the steady energy of the adult. We can grow more certain that we will find someone here or elsewhere because we have much to offer. We can begin to believe that we are a prize, not a burden. We can survive rejection. That is the superpower. Knowing that if this person walks away, we will be sad, but we will not be destroyed. We will still have our friends, our interests, our coffee in the morning, our walk in the park. We can afford to delay and explore. We can treat dating not as a job interview for the role of savior, but as a leisurely stroll to see if our paths align. We can take as much time as we need, paying constant and close attention to how comfortable we feel. We can check in with our gut. Does this feel good? Does this feel safe? Or does this feel familiar in a bad way? We can avoid any embarrassment at being uncertain by communicating our hesitations honestly. It is incredibly, incredibly powerful to say to a new partner, "I really like you, and because I like you, I want to take this slowly. I want to get this right." That is not a rejection, it is a compliment. It shows that you value the connection enough to give it the time it deserves to grow roots. We can normalize the pause. We can normalize the space between dates. We can normalize having lives that are separate and full, so that when we do come together, we are two whole people sharing an experience, not two half people trying to complete one another. We can learn to sit with the discomfort of the unknown. The early stages of dating are full of ambiguity. The anxious mind hates ambiguity. It wants certainty now. The avoidant mind hates ambiguity. It assumes the worst. The mature mind accepts ambiguity as part of the process. It says, "I do not know yet, and that is okay." We can rewrite the script of our past. We can be the parents to ourselves that we never had. We can soothe the anxious child who wants to rush, and we can encourage the frightened child who wants to hide. We can hold their hands and walk down the middle path, so that eventually, one day, when it finally feels right, we can take a thoughtful risk. We will not be jumping off a cliff blindly. We will be stepping onto a bridge we have tested. We can reach out for their hand, not to pull us out of a drowning sea, but simply to hold it as we walk side by side. We can look at them and see them clearly, not as a fantasy, not as a threat, but as a human being. And we can let them see us. We can open our hearts layer by layer at a pace that feels safe and true. And when we do that, we will know something profound. We will know that we will be able to survive whatever follows. If it lasts a lifetime, it will be a beautiful journey. If it ends, it will be a lesson. But either way, we will be okay. Going slow is not about playing hard to get. It is about playing it smart. It is about honoring your heart enough to protect it, and honoring your partner enough to see them clearly. It is about building a house on a foundation of stone rather than on sand. So, my friends, if you are dating, or if you are in a relationship that feels chaotic, I invite you to try the power of the pause. Breathe. Wait. Listen to yourself. There is no rush. The right love will wait for you. The right love will understand. The right love is not a race. It is a rest. Thank you so much for listening to the Happy Aura channel. I hope this message brings some peace to your heart today. Remember, you are worthy of a love that is calm, consistent, and kind. Be patient with yourself and be patient with others. Until next time, sending you all my love.